Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Zach. Thank you for joining us for our fifth episode of Digital Live. This is my co-host, Tariq.
I'm Tariq Harris, and today here we are joined with Joel for what to expect for the Pinterest tour.
All right. And then thanks everyone who is watching in the future. For those who are live, make sure to comment for the Q&A. It might just get featured later. And as for the Pinterest tour, here is the link to join that. That is going to be on April 1st at 10 a.m. And I'll show a clickable link later towards the end of the show. All right, now, Jarrell, give us a brief introduction about yourself, like where you attended school, what you studied, anything interesting you want to say about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. This is exciting. Excited to give everybody that sneak peek at the Pinterest tour. My name is Jerome McCree, as you already mentioned. Thanks for the introduction. Quick intro about myself. I studied at Eastern Michigan University, studied marketing. I graduated back in 2014. I absolutely loved my experience at Eastern. Prior to that, I did some time at community colleges. I've been in the digital marketing industry about 8 to 10 years, starting back to my time at Eastern Michigan. And now I work at Pinterest as a partner manager, which is kind of a cross between like a digital marketing consultant and advertising sales. And then I guess a fun fact too, I was named after Superman's dad, which is my fun fact that I usually like to share.
That is a fun fact. I did not know that. All right. Also, we are all in a storm right now, so if our audio sounds a little weird, that goes for all of us. That's why. All right, next question. So, Jarrell, tell us about what brought you to Pinterest and a little more about your role as partner manager.
Yeah, what brought me to Pinterest? So as soon as I graduated from Eastern, I jumped right into the automotive industry at some of the advertising agencies that were local. I interned at Ford Credit while I was at Eastern, which is amazing. And then I went to work for an agency called iProspect, which is GM's advertising agency. The bigger name that the market would know is probably Kara, but it's their paid social, paid search arm where we focused on paid search and paid social. I was there for about almost 4 years, got to work on a lot of cool projects. And then I really got to learn the landscape of all things search and all things paid social. When I say all things, it's constantly evolving, but to me, it seemed like a lot of knowledge over that time. And then Pinterest opened an office here in Detroit, and they were looking for a team. And my experience in social was, when you get in on the ground floor, sometimes there's some exciting things that can happen. I always wanted that feeling of working at a startup, but at a bigger startup. So Pinterest was that here. And actually, Pinterest has only been around for just over 10 years. So it very much so has that startup feel.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a great opportunity for it just like kind of springing up in Detroit like that.
Yeah.
So what's the best part of working for Pinterest? Are there any cool benefits or interesting clients?
Yeah, so I focus exclusively on the automotive industry, which is interesting. The best thing that I think I hear about working for Pinterest, I'll talk about what the experience is like when I talk to people and tell them where I work, plus what I get to do on a daily basis. So usually, whenever I mention I work at Pinterest to anyone who uses the platform, the first thing that they say is they just say, I love Pinterest. They'll scream, jump up and down. That's exciting because usually when you talk about the company that you work for, you usually don't get that type of response. So that's the first part that I love about it. The second part is, like I said, it's a cross between digital marketing and then consulting because I am in advertising sales. So really, what I love about on a daily basis is I get to take a brand's challenge and actually come up with creative marketing solutions to solve that challenge. So that is kind of mixing up all the things that I love to do into one role. And the reason I love Pinterest so much is just what we stand for. Our mission is to inspire everyone to create a life that they love. So there's a ton of things that you can be doing online at any given point, but it's cool to know that where I spend most of my time and energy is a place that is actually trying to inspire the world, and it's a positive place versus some of those alternatives that you can go online.
Oh, absolutely. And Pinterest is very fun to browse for sure. Now, can you give us a bit of a sneak peek of what we can expect during the Pinterest tour?
Absolutely. So at the Pinterest tour, you're going to hear from some of my colleagues, as well as one of the heads of our industry here in Detroit, where they can kind of give context behind what we do on a daily basis, what it looks like to work at a company remotely, because the headquarters of Pinterest is actually in San Francisco. But we are a remote office of that. But then even talking about what the culture looks like when you are in some type of a remote office and versus what it may look like when you work in the actual headquarters. In addition to that, I think it'll be really cool just to kind of hear the story of everyone who works the team and how they got there. So you kind of heard my story briefly, the abbreviated story of how I arrived at Pinterest, but you're going to hear from two other people who are more senior than me. I'd say where they started their careers well before I did, and kind of their journeys to Pinterest as well, and some of the tips and tricks that they may have for you and anyone else who's joining the tour.
That sounds great. And on that note, can you tell us a bit about some of your coworkers that'll be on the tour?
Yeah, the first one is her name is Kimberly Blommer. She is, like I said, the industry lead for Pinterest Auto Team here in Detroit. Absolutely amazing. I want to say she's been in the digital marketing industry for maybe 15 to 20 years. Before she was at Pinterest, she also worked at Google for I want to say over 10 years, and then Yahoo as well. So she'll give that context for like what brought her to Pinterest from Google, and then what led her to Google from Yahoo. Just kind of hearing that experience, I think, will be valuable for the interns or potential interns who join that call, knowing that you just came from the Google tour. So kind of hearing from someone who worked at Google and then left Google, what may have driven them to do that. So hear from Kim. Another one is Timothy Davis. Timothy's going to talk about what brought her to Pinterest as well. I know before she was at Pinterest, she also worked at a couple of advertising agencies here locally. Some were remote out of different cities, as well as some local marketing companies as well before her time there. So tons of different experiences that you're going to hear along the way.
All right. Sounds great to hear from all those different perspectives. All right, so shifting gears here, tell us a bit about your experience as a mentor in the Digital Summer Clinic and what your role is like there.
Yeah, so my role as a mentor has been absolutely phenomenal. The biggest thing that I say that is cool is, you think about taking your experience in the university and then translating that into the real world. My experience as a mentor has been able to help interns as they go directly into these real life startup situations, kind of navigate that journey. Working at a startup, it's crazy but fun, but definitely crazy because like you're trying to do a lot. It's a lot of things that are undefined, and really, as an intern at these organizations, you get to help define what that brand's going to do, or that company or startup's going to do. So I'm here to really bounce ideas off of, help address any questions or concerns that come up along the way. A lot of times, I think what I can help do is like refine different ideas. So a lot of times, like you may be thinking about like, how does this piece of the project that I'm working on impact the greater company? I'll be there to help you kind of put together the pieces that maybe you aren't able to get when you're directly at your startup, or maybe you don't want to seem like you're asking a dumb question with your CEO that you're working with in the startup. So I'm kind of background alongside a great team that's kind of helping you navigate that relationship and helping you really translate what you're learning in the startup into actions that you're going to take not only at the startup, but then as you advance your career as well.
Oh, yeah, that sounds super helpful, especially with startups. I know those can get really hectic to work at.
Yes, you learn a lot. It's actually crazy how much you learn, and like I'm pretty like usually the timing of the entire experience goes by pretty quickly, but you'll be amazed at how much you learn in these. So what we're going to help you do is kind of like craft all that experience that's coming at you fast into a polished resume that you can use when you graduate the program. Whether you choose to stay at that startup, because most times I feel like they want you to stay. So if they want to offer you a role, you can kind of like bounce that off of us and say like, hey, what do you think about this versus other roles that you may have as well. So we're just here to really help you and get the most out of the program.
Oh, yeah. Well, having those professional mentors is definitely one of the biggest benefits of the program. All right. Last question for me tonight before the Q&A. What advice do you have for students thinking of applying to the summer clinic?
Yeah, I would say apply. It doesn't hurt to apply. Even if you have other opportunities that you may be weighing out, you just want to make sure you get your application in sooner than later, because it's based on what I've seen and people that I've interviewed or or I know of them being hired at organizations after this program, it really does give you a leg up when you graduate. And I think the experiences and the people you're going to meet is really I don't know of many other opportunities like this that are out there. Hypothetically, you go work at a company that has an internship. Great. But in this program, not only are you going to be able to work at that company that you get assigned to, but you're going to be meeting people who work at a ton of different companies. You're going to hear their experiences on a weekly basis. You're going to see people like myself and other business professionals in the market come in and give you advice. You're going to have an opportunity to talk to them as well and really just grow a network bigger than what you can get in a normal internship experience. So if you're thinking about it, apply. If you're not sure, still apply. And then you could also always weigh it out once you kind of get other opportunities as well.
Absolutely. I know it's an incredible networking event. All right. Well, Jarrell, thank you for your answers. Those are all the questions that I have. So I will turn it over to Tariq for our Q&A.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to get started with the Q&A. And the first question we have comes from Jamie Ward. And it says, can you talk about some of the characteristics you see in the interns from the Digital Summer Clinic that would set them apart when applying for jobs with companies like Pinterest?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the characteristics. I think there is always a need for people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and test. We have a value at Pinterest called Win or Learn, where really it really is supposed to help you to constantly be curious, constantly test theories, constantly think of things that you can do to advance whatever the product is or experiences for the end consumer. And I think in these startups, you're going to be learning a lot. You're not always going to make the right decision, but as long as you try and then learn from that experience, there's really no losing. You're either going to win by, hey, you were right at what you tried, or you're going to learn something new. So being able to think about how you can mold any experience that you have and turn that into a learning opportunity, that's huge. And when people could do it, it just sets you up with a different growth mindset that's going to help you moving forward. So that's one of the big things I like to look at when we see people come in who are hiring or when we're hiring for different roles. I think also just a different type of experience. A lot of times in different areas, it's hard to break in. Networking always helps. Me personally, my role is, I want to say 50 to 60% networking. When I first joined this role, I really only knew the people that I worked with for the past 5 to 6 years, but I've been able to grow a network that was much larger. A part of sales is actually who you know. So part of it is what you're selling, but most of it is who you know. So being able to network is a huge skill, whether you're internal networking to help advance the role that you're trying to do at that job, or maybe you're in a sales role where you need to be able to get to know people that you don't already know, either digitally or having to meet them in person. Those types of skills are always going to be invaluable no matter where you are.
I agree. Networking is probably definitely one of the best things that you can do for your career for the Digital Summer Clinic.
Oh, yeah.
The next question I'm going to pull up comes from Anna. I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but it says, what is your favorite part as a mentor for the Digital Summer Clinic?
Favorite part? I get to work with people who are learning digital for the first time, which is always exciting, but I also get to see all these new startups that the world really hasn't seen yet. So it kind of mixes both, where students who are super excited to do things, really testing, pushing the limits. It's exciting to see that and be able to help them see success in those weeks that we're there, but also cool to see what these brands are able to do when they infuse young talent into the organization. So favorite part is being able to help you take basically raw talent on both sides, maybe a raw product plus raw talent, and really make something special at the end.
Great insight. The next question we have comes from Sufyan, and it says, what advice can you give EMU students in the digital marketing era?
Yes, never stop learning. Never stop learning. There's always something new from a digital marketing perspective. Tariq and I were talking, and Zach before this. There's so many different things that you can learn in digital marketing. I think some people lean 100% on the creative side, where they just focus on ad production, videos, things like that. Some people go all the way to the other side, where it's, I want to know development of apps or websites, things like that. Then there's some people who learn the marketing or not the marketing aspect, but the media aspect of who am I talking to? How do I reach them? I think if you can get a high level understanding of that, while you're a student, that'll really set you up for success, because no matter where you go, a lot of the conversation, how you approach who that potential audience is and what they're looking to do and how you can help them is a common theme that you're going to find throughout any of that. So while you're a student, try to get as much of that high level information, so that way you can make an informed choice when you graduate of what areas that you think you might want to play a role in. But also, I think that'll help you pick a role too, where it'll give you more of what you want to do. So for me, I really wanted to learn about search marketing. So I found a role when I graduated directly in search marketing. Now I'm more so in roles where I'm like, wait, I want to do a little bit of marketing where who am I targeting, but I also want to be creative. So if I want to go into a room and lead a brainstorm with 20 people at a creative agency, in my role, I can pretty much pick what I want to do that day, which makes it exciting. But it took me years to understand like what part of marketing that I actually like. But there's so many things you can do. So just learn as much as you can and just have fun with it.
Yeah, digital marketing is such an expansive area.
Oh, yeah.
I have another question from Jamie, and it says, can you speak to the value of networking in your career?
Absolutely. Networking. The two roles that I got outside of Eastern, when I graduated, were actually because of networking. So there was, I think a lot of the people that may be watching this may have already met Eric Wortman. So Eric Wortman, who's also a mentor at in the clinic, I actually met him. He came into a program at Eastern with Bud Gibson, and he kind of gave information on like, how do you break into the industry? What are some of those tips and tricks? What are those things that you should learn? And I took those notes, and 2 months later, I actually did everything that he said, and I showed up at the interview, and I got the job. So meeting him in that clinic or in that class that he came to speak to actually translated into a real job 2 months later, which was awesome. And then in my job, the way that I got into Pinterest was actually through networking. It was just someone who was in ad sales trying to come to talk to me about the value of Pinterest. And when they explained it to me, it sounded cool. One thing led to another. And then I had a recruiter reaching out to me within the week of like, hey, you want to come work here with us? And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. But both of them, I would not have had these roles if it wasn't for networking. So extremely valuable. And I think actually the older you get and the more experience you get, it's less about, some of it is about what you know, but really who you know becomes extremely important, because some of the roles may be filled before they ever even go to application status. It might just be a text message or a call that you get from someone that you used to work with who may think that you may be perfect for a role that they have opening. So networking is extremely valuable.
Always network. I got it.
Oh, yeah.
And the last question I have comes from Anna, and it says, Jarrell, would you say that it is difficult getting a job at Pinterest?
I don't know if I would say it's difficult. Pinterest is a global company, so they have roles all over the world at this point, and we're still growing. Pinterest Detroit, while it may seem small, it actually is a small team that we have here because we focus exclusively on automotive. But there's offices across the country, and there's tons of roles that we have open and things that need to be done to really create really achieve the mission that we have, right? I think I've mentioned early on, like we want to help everybody build and create a life that they love, and the world needs to be inspired. So tons of roles. Not all of them may be here in Detroit, but there are roles globally available for sure.
Got you. And that is all for the questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Zach.
Awesome.
I'm going to wrap it up.
All right. I want to thank everyone again for watching this episode of Digital Live. Definitely be sure to apply to the clinic at this link right here, digitalsummer.clinic. It's also going to be clickable in the comments for anyone coming back. All right, Jarrell, thank you for being here with us. It was great to have you on. Pleasure to meet you. All right, be sure to check out our Eventbrite right here for all the events coming up, including the Pinterest tour, which you don't want to miss, April 1st, everyone. All right, and I'm going to leave that here for a bit, but stay tuned for our next episode on March 30th at 6 p.m. We're going to have Kylie Gilligan and Sheena Monin on to talk about how to succeed at both remote and in-person work. All right. Thanks, everyone, once again, and have a great night.
Thanks for having me.